So thanks, Jennifer. We've got folks joining now. And welcome to Art Viewing Adventures, part 2 of our discussion of the Diego Rivera Pan American Unity Mural. I'm joined by Nikki Trasvinia, who is my kind of co-host today. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
And then our special guest is Don Ross, who's a photographer for the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Hi, Don.
Hello.
And we're not officially starting the program until 1 o'clock, so we got a few minutes. But I thought I'd just ask, like, Don, what have you noticed when you go see the mural at the museum? Like, how are people interacting with the mural?
Well, the crowds have been great. Gosh, how are they reacting? They're really a lot of deep looking, a lot of figuring out who the figures are in the mural, a lot of interest in the history, kind of the lessons within the mural. And I just would scroll down to see who the participants are, and I see we have a Mr. William Maynes.
Yeah, it's great to have Will back with us. So,
and I was going to say, every time I go to see the mural, Will is there, so I tracked.
So Will, Will was our guest 2 weeks ago, and we're just thrilled to have him back because that was a lot of fun. And we do have a recording of that show 2 weeks ago. So if you missed it, I'll tell you what, while we're talking, I will put in chat the link to that video, which is on YouTube.
I want to see that.
Yeah, and Don, I think I'll send it to you in email. And if anybody wants to get an email with that link, just put your email into chat. And I'll make sure you get that, because that was a wonderful conversation. Will has been the steward of the mural for over 22 years, was instrumental in this move of the mural from City College to the Museum of Modern Art. And Don, you were part of that too, right?
I was part of the recording of the move, yeah, and the recording, a good at least a year and a half of photographing the conservators at work and all the prep work that went into moving the mural. So we had a firsthand view of what it all took to move the mural. But also we did extensive photography. I have a couple pictures I'll show you, but we did extensive photography in many different wavelengths of light to discover new things about the mural, mainly to look at its shape and to learn how to protect the surface of the mural.
I just want to say, I think I feel a great debt of gratitude to you and Will Maynes and the many other people involved in that. It is such a treat to have that mural on display at SFMOMA in a very central location. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I hope everybody gets a chance to see it. I know we have people from out of town. This would be well worth making a visit to San Francisco just to see this mural.
Indeed, indeed. And I feel really fortunate that I was able to be a fly on the wall of the whole move process from beginning to end. And yeah, there hasn't been a project like this, of course. There hasn't been a lot of time since it's been installed, but there will never be another move like this again, I don't think, of this scale. I don't imagine. So it was really a special time. Kind of miss it. I miss going in, checking the camera, photographing people. Yeah.
So
I just missed the whole deal.
Why don't we go ahead and we're going to officially start the show. So those of you who have joined, you haven't missed anything. We were just having a little chat about the mural, but we're going to talk about so much more. But Nikki, you're our connector from the Community Living Campaign. Why don't you kick us off here?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this fantastic presentation. There's been so much anticipation for this program today, especially after 2 weeks ago when we did part 1 talking about the mural with Will Maynes. And my name's Nikki Trasvinia. I'm part of the Community Living Campaign. I'm a community connector, and our organization is a nonprofit in San Francisco, and we cater to the needs of seniors and people with disabilities through advocacy and bringing them programs like this. We've been doing this for about 18 months, over 18 months now, providing Zoom programming for seniors and people with disabilities at home, also providing them a lot of tech support, even devices. So I'm very proud of this organization, and I'm proud that we're bringing this as part of Latino Heritage Month to you. And I just want to get on with the show, but maybe I can mention what this picture's about. Is that okay?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so the ladies here, you'll see two
Hi,
ladies.
Nikki and Rodney.
Hey, Paco.
Paco. So you'll see two ladies in the center. One of them is Carmen Tresvini, my mom, and her sister Espy. And today is my mom's birthday. She would have been 103 today.
Wow.
And she participated with her sisters at the 1939 World's Fair in Treasure Island, where Diego Rivera painted the mural. So she was part of that because their father, my grandfather, was a member of, he was the lead agent at the Mexican National Railways in San Francisco. So he had a prominent role in San Francisco, and they were always invited to attend a lot of events. So they were very happy to be part of the fair, and I'm sure they got to meet Diego Rivera and Frida while they were participating in the fair. So happy heavenly birthday to my mom. Thank you for letting me talk about her.
Yeah, I feel like your
Oh,
mom.
happy birthday to your mom, Nikki.
Yeah,
Paco,
In heaven.
thank
Paco, you nailed it. And I do feel like she's part of the proceedings today.
Thank you.
So I'm going to stop sharing that picture because we've got our guest, Don Ross. Don is a photographer for the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. He was very involved in the moving of this mural and documented it, and we're going to be hearing all about that. So Don, you can go ahead and share your slides, and we'll go ahead and get started with this program. We'll be talking about, again, this is Pan American Unity, Diego Rivera's masterpiece mural, which is currently on display at San Francisco Museum of Modern Art for free in the gallery off of Howard Street on the first floor.
In the
So-
Roberts Family Gallery, indeed. Yes. The free viewing area where the Richard Serra used to be, if you recall, if anybody recalls that space. Huge, big space. Not as big as the Tate's Turbine Hall, but we try to do our best.
So take it away.
Everybody can see my screen, Rodney?
Yeah, and I just want to tell people while you're talking, Don, we'll be looking at chat, and Don has a presentation, but towards the end, we hope there'll be some time for Q&A and your comments, that kind of thing. So take it away, Don.
Okay, thank you. Also encourage people to raise their hand if they want to comment as we go along. I don't mind pausing and answering questions if people want to do it that way too. So yes, as Rodney said, and lovely Nikki here, I have a presentation of the move. And so the first slide here is just a collage of some of the highlights, a mix mash of the highlight from top to bottom. One thing to note, the top right image, I'm going to talk about those particular springs. We're going to allude to those particular springs. Well, I'll refer to those again. The center image was the last day of the last panel moves, and you can see one of our art movers leveling it out. And this was just a celebratory day. Our director in the bottom right corner was there. And then there's some process shots. It was just a really fantastic day when we finally moved the last panel into place. Okay, so what are we talking about? We are talking about the Pan American Unity mural. And its official long title is and this is Diego Rivera's Pan American Unity mural. He titled it "The Marriage of the Artistic Expression of the North and of the South on This Continent." And it's a huge fresco. It's a huge mural. It's 77 feet long by 24 feet tall. And it's done in 10 sections. The top sections are almost twice as big as the bottom row sections. Just to give you a sense of the scale. And how did it start? It started with the Golden Gate International Exhibition. And Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that was 1940. Was it actually 1939 that it started?
Yes.
1939. Okay.
Yeah, it started in 39. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Okay, no problem. But Art in Action was it was established, I think, on Treasure Island, the Golden Gate International Exposition. Art in Action took place in 1940, and that was part of the Golden Gate International Exposition. It was part of the program called Art in Action, an event designed by the then prominent architect Timothy Pfluger. And you may know his name, Timothy Pfluger, because we have several buildings in town that were designed by Pfluger, including the Castro Theater, the Pac Bell Building, 450 Sutter, etc. But it was 60 plus artists in this space, in this pavilion, making art in real time. So we have, if you look in the foreground, you can see sculptors at work, scaffolding up above with more art. The centerpiece of the event, however, was Diego Rivera's fresco. And this photograph that you see was taken from Diego Rivera's scaffolding. So looking down. So on the top right, you can see the beginnings of the front of the plaster panels for Pan American Unity, and the bottom right, he's a little bit into the painting of it. You can see him on the upper level of the scaffolding, filling in those areas with color. So he drew on the on paper that was attached to the plaster, and the drawings were traced on, and he would work daily on this particular mural while people were watching. So it's kind of like we've come full circle a little bit, because now we go to the Roberts Family Gallery and we can see the mural, and people are just in awe and and looking closely at the mural. But imagine what it was like when he was actually painting it. So I want to throw this question out to anybody in the audience. Can anyone guess which famous photographer might have taken this picture? Local photographer.
Could it have been Ansel Adams?
It's Ansel Adams. Good one.
Whoa.
I just like to throw that out there because, we have so much art history in the Bay Area. It's just incredible that we have these huge figures in art history. So Ansel took this shot of Diego with the scaffolding. So the fresco is enormous. It's 77 feet by 24 feet tall. And although Rivera worked very fast, he did not finish the fresco when the fair ended at the end of September. He continued working with 2 assistants on the mural, often sleeping on the scaffolding without any heat. Months after the fair closed, an eager public returned to Treasure Island to see the finished masterpiece. Figures have it that it was 30,000 visitors over the course of 2 days saw this mural. So it was a massive undertaking for a temporary fair. However, Timothy Pfluger, who I mentioned before, the architect, had plans for repurposing some of the work produced in Art in Action. And at the time, Pfluger was also the architect for City College of San Francisco. So he had plans for Rivera's mural to be installed in the library. And there is a shot in one of these scenes. I'll point out in the mural, you can see Pfluger in the mural with plans in his hands. I'll try to remember to point that out. But let's think about this: a giant fresco, middle of the bay on Treasure Island. They needed to make it quote unquote portable, these 10 panels. So Rivera and Pfluger designed it in 10 panels, 2 rows of 5. each with a rigid steel framework around the plaster. So it came with a rigid steel backing. When the fair was over and Rivera was done painting, the panels were disassembled individually and crated and transported to City College of San Francisco. At this time, the United States gets involved in World War II in 1941, and all non-essential construction projects are put on hold. So the idea of installing this particular mural at City College, the plans go awry. The end of the war in 1945, Pfluger dies unexpectedly in 1946, and the crates sit on the campus until 1961. Kind of hard to believe. Here on the left, we see Rivera pigment on a wet giornata, and that's a really interesting word that I learned from one of the folks from Mexico, one of the conservators. It's an Italian term, but what it means is a day's work. A giornata means a day's work. So you can see that white area. So if you look closely at the mural, when you see it in person, you'll notice these interesting little speckled dots that kind of are there on the surface, and those indicated a giornata. So the goal was to complete a giornata in the day while the plaster is wet, because you want to put the paint on while the plaster can soak up that ink, that pigment. And then on the right is one of his assistants preparing a giornata for the day's work. And there's a closer view with the trowel, and you can see how the plaster is all over his clothes. Okay, so here's an overview. You get the sense of scale, how large this is. If you look at the 1U, 2U, 3, etc., starts for 1 upper, 2 upper, and 1L, 2L, etc., starts for 1 lower, 2 lower. Again, 74 feet long and extremely high. The goal was to start the install with 5L, 5 upper, 4L, 4 upper, 3L, 3 lower, then 3 upper, etc. So piecing it together, and these panels were between 1 and 2 a day. The trips were 1 and 2 a day. So almost 22 feet tall by 74 feet wide. The large panels, up above 5 of them, are almost 15 feet wide by 22 feet tall. And the small panels below on the lower row was almost 15 feet wide by 7 feet tall. Here is a view. It's a fisheye view. It's not the actual flat view that you might see in real life, but it's a composite fisheye perspective of the mural. Imagine it flattened out. That's how we see it, actually. But to get to capture the image in that big space, they had to use a wide angle lens. So you can see the 2 people in the upper panel, just to give you a sense of scale. What you see on the left is actually how it's attached to the wall of the theater. So it's in the Performing Arts Theater building at City, or it was at City College in the Performing Arts building. And it was really important to peek behind the wall. If you see in the center, you see these sort of 3 bolts that are securing the fresco on its metal panel in orange. And you can see the plaster kind of peeking through the meshing, and then the wall of the theater. So it was installed in place. Here's another peek of that, the back of the panel. This is probably an old image from Treasure Island. But it's amazing to me personally that they had this kind of construction on the back of the panel. And it's a testament to Pfluger and Rivera's idea to make this mural portable, make it be seen elsewhere, not just, because a lot of the stuff did not survive the Treasure Island Fair. So in 1961, flash forward to 1961 from 1945. In 1961, Milton Pfluger, the younger brother of Timothy, the architect, designed a theater for CCSF, City College, and incorporated the mural into the lobby. That's what we see here. But it sort of falls short of viewing because it's a bit of a cramped lobby, prevents one from standing back to view the entire work. And notice that they had to sort of join it in certain sections. Normally a work like this, you want to see it flat. In this sense, in this way, the wall was naturally curved in that space. So they had to sort of adjoin the panels just so. Over the years, there have been various campaigns by Rivera advocates at CCSF to move this to a more accessible and appropriate location. Additionally, this theater had become structurally compromised, leading CCSF to create plans for a performing arts and education center. Pan American Unity will return to the new location that will be built after its time at SFMOMA, where it is sure to have a greater visibility and access. And so the challenge, what was once, quote, portable, is now fairly attached to a 12-inch thick concrete wall here at the theater. The mural was bordered also by glass walls along the sides and all the way up to the ceiling on the interior. So it was kind of, I wouldn't say crammed in there, but carefully installed in a constricting space. Let's put it that way.
Hey, Don, I got a quick question.
Sure.
Were the windows introducing light that might have been damaging to the colors of the mural?
That's a good question, and probably a question for the conservators. But I think from all reports, the integrity of the pigments in the mural have maintained. It's been cleaned, but the vibrancy, I don't know if it actually, the edges have been affected by a lot of sunlight. That's a good question, though. One for a conservator.
Oh, we had an earlier question too. Were the assistants that Diego Rivera brought in, were they other artists from Mexico? Do we know who they were?
I think that's a good question. I think they were local. This gentleman. I don't know. I could find that out, but we certainly brought in our experts from Mexico, and I'll get to that in just a second. Good questions. So here is the Performing Arts Building. Behind that greenish wall lives the mural. There's the glass panels that go all the way up to the ceiling. There's between 1 to 3 inches of space between the back of the mural and this exterior concrete wall. So after thinking about this project for over a year, engineers came to the conclusion that removal of the panels would involve extensive excavation by drilling, and that they really wanted to surround themselves with a team of experts in engineering, rigging, fresco conservation, concrete specialists, to name a few specialties. So in January of 2019, a big Pan-American collaboration was born. A dozen people on the SFMOMA team joined experts in Mexico City to begin the process of finding partners for this ambitious project. They met at UNAM, which stands UNAM, which stands for the National Autonomous University of Mexico. So we have actually Brian from ATAU, a couple of our preparers are there, conservationists from painting conservators from SFMOMA in the crowd. Will Menez is there as well. as experts from all over the world, curatorial. So here's the panel that they assembled. So over the course of 2 days, they did close looking at Rivera's technique throughout his career and heard about related case studies. What did they learn? They learned that there is indeed no other fresco like this in the world. They had a very unique challenge on their hands. Maybe the overwhelming takeaway, keen awareness of the fact that this was one of those projects that comes once in a lifetime. The passion and support for problem solving was real, and those involved knew they had partners in navigating the new terrain. If Will wants to pipe in at any moment, feel free, Will, because you were there. You can speak to it.
I will say a couple of things.
Please.
That circular, we never got a chance to go to UNAM. So that circular array of people there, in fact, is at the Secretariat of Education, which is one of the first large-scale murals that Rivera did. That's 3 floors of murals there. It took them several years to finish it. So we went there, and Jay Olds, who's the curator of the upcoming show next summer at SFMOMA, stepped us through Rivera learning to paint in a fresco technique on the fly. He had learned the technique in Europe, but here he is dealing with the day-to-day stuff at UNAM, and he got better as he went along.
Thank you, Will.
Sure.
Lord. Oh, you pretty girl.
So at UNAM, they made, and you can see some folks there from Mexico City. They made one-to-one mock-ups of the fresco and exterior walls, drilling and vibration on a one-to-one scale. So the same measurements that we would be dealing with from City College to SFMOMA, they made one-to-one models, including the superstructure that the mural lives on. They also performed tests on the lifting of the mural by steel cables and came to find that there was extraordinary stress on the integrity of the mural when lifted from the top. And that's illustrated that in that bright green. So the engineers did tests and saw that there was a lot of stress if they lifted it from the top. Here's more pictures of the UNAM team. And they also knew that we needed to bore through that theater wall. So they made, as thick as a 12-inch thick wall and did testing boring through the wall. And what are they looking for? They're looking for the effects of vibration. There will necessarily be a certain amount of vibration involved in getting the mural out of the building and across town to SFMOMA. It was their main concern. So it was the focus of 3 engineers from the Mexico team who arrived each day in starched white lab coats. Back in San Francisco, they placed real-time sensors on the surface. You can see that in the shot on the right, and measured how the panels reacted to drilling tests, including creating large exploratory holes into the exterior wall of the building. Here you can see those wires on the right attached to the of the mural itself. On the left, scientists from UNAM with the project manager, Brian from the company Atau, who are skilled art movers and handlers. And SFMOMA has been working with Atau for years because they are the experts in moving valuable art. So you could see on the computer screen, we've got wavelengths of colors, and they're looking at the vibration as the people on the outside are drilling exploratory holes. Green means okay, when the levels went into the red, it was time to slow down and take a step back and let the vibration dissipate before they did any more drilling. This is just a graphic from the scientist side showing can all the load be carried from below? So if you distribute the load out, will it be less stressed than as if it were pulled from the top? And indeed, they found that carrying the weight from the bottom is less stress on the fresco, because you do not want it cracking as you're lifting it out. Hopefully that makes sense. Another graphic illustrating how it would be assembled. There's the wall of the theater on the right, and then the mural right next to that with a little bit of space in between. They realized that, well, they'd have to drill holes, they'd have to cut away the wood and tack welds and excess grout, and install a support beam and jacks and a lifting table. Remember I mentioned those 3 bolts or studs? They're called Nelson studs. They actually had to take those out. So they had to saw those out, and then take the load from the bottom, attach a gantry, lower the panel with the jacks, and attach a new mount that would be its travel mount or travel crate. So here, early imaging techniques that scholars, researchers, conservators, and photographers worked on. That's actually me on the left in the foreground. I'm monitoring what the conservator is looking at with her camera. So detailed pictures of any problem areas, etc. Basically imaging every inch of the mural with emphasis in high resolution imaging of potential problem areas that showed loss or potential for loss or damage, if you will. Looking for areas that were really fragile and supporting those areas. So in addition to the fresco conservators, SFMOMA partnered in July of 2018 with a group of colleagues from UNAM. Let's see, 7 of them gave up their summer vacations and spent 14 straight days from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. here in San Francisco at City College, working alongside our project team and photo team. We used a variety of analytical techniques to identify the materials and methods of making this mural and to confirm condition issues. Here you see this funny blue light. Here you see us during an evening photography session using UV light to search for the presence of coatings. So you can't do this type of imagery during the day. And in fact, there was some ambient light coming through with those big windows, so we had to cover them in plastic to get the place completely dark. So we were working in the dark. So this is a long exposure of UV light, looking for things on the surface that they might be concerned with. Okay, so again, the outside of the theater, what looks like a tic-tac-toe games on the left, drawn on the surface of the exterior of the theater, will eventually come to resemble Swiss cheese as holes are drilled to extract the concrete for exploration. And here's the first big hole that they made. So getting through that thick concrete takes a while with the diamond-headed drill. You know, you're just like, for what seems like maybe an hour to get or more. And here's it's a funny picture. My friend Catherine took this picture right by the donations box. So the lead engineer from Mexico, Jerry rigged this scaffold system to do some close looking in that hole of the steel structure on the back of the fresco. I think necessity is the mother of invention. It's funny, he used a ladder and 2 and 3 chairs to support him while he's looking at the back of the fresco. So it was fantastic to have these partners in Mexico, but also good to have local partners. While the scientists from Mexico were here, SFMOMA arranged for vibration specialists at the Space Sciences Lab at UC Berkeley to join us. They are literally rocket scientists, and they have worked with NASA. They are charged with isolating vibration from sensitive analytical equipment that comes from the violent launch of a spaceship, for example. They explored the possibilities for isolating vibration to this masterpiece with this A-team on the project. We had the best of the best engineers working with us, making sure that we were not vibrating the mural too much. And those shock absorbers, I think I pointed out in the first slide, are the results of some of this for traveling as well.
Sounds like a good opportunity to play the Beach Boys' Good Vibrations.
That would be good. So here we see more conservators and scientists at work on the mural before it's even moved at all. These are early images, maybe a year before the move, year and a half before the move. Again, looking at every inch of the fresco. So conservation, treatment, and instrumentation. An example of the upper 5th panel. So around the periphery, they put in surface protection, and around sensitive areas, found that the periphery really needed to be protected against vibration. So they covered those areas with layers of protection. Then on top, sensors were applied to monitor vibration. So if you look at the stratigraphy, the frescoes on the bottom, there's a layer of cyclododecane, which is a chemical that they applied to the surface of the fresco, which can later be removed, but it helps to keep it intact. And then there's a woven textile, more cyclododecane, and a barrier layer after that, and then the sensors put on top of that. So a lot of care went into preserving it before its move. Okay, so the areas in white overlay show those areas most vulnerable to potential damage. Note on site at SFMOMA, conservators worked on removing layers of protection well into the move. And if you saw just after the mural was in place, conservators were still removing some of the cyclododecane, which I think is, you can remove it with moisture or humidity. So we had fans kind of blowing in areas on the mural to remove the protective layer. So it's a great chemical. It doesn't harm the mural, it only protects it and can easily be removed. Well, over time it can be removed. Any questions so far in the chat, Rodney? Are we doing okay?
There was one question kind of about Diego painting the mural. If the jornada didn't get all used on the day, would it have to be redone before the area could be painted the next day?
I believe so. I think their goal was to do a jornada a day because the plaster will start to dry, and in that case it will not take the pigment. So you have about a day's time to do the color, to fill in the color. I didn't hear any examples of where they were not successful doing a jornada. I think it's a manageable space, an area to do in a day's work. But Yeah, that's a good question.
And then I have a question. This was all done during the pandemic, right? Was the pandemic kind of another curveball? They had
Yeah, it was another layer of protection, another layer of going slow. I think it was just like a very slow and methodical procedure. We were charged with photographing the process, and sometimes it's like watching paint dry because it's like,
literally.
you know, if the drilling is too intense on the mural, you have to stop the drilling. You have to wait till the vibration calms down, find another exploratory area. We were working with crews, construction crews, deconstruction crews. So yeah, sometimes a day's work would, it would take a lot to just make a move at all. So on the left, you see the poured concrete wall of the theater, those Nelson studs that they had to cut to, because they're actually connected, they're welded into the back of the mural steel structure. So I had to cut the Nelson studs to release it.
Amazing. I see Marcia has her hand raised. Marcia, you can go ahead and unmute and let us know your question.
You know, I was just going to share what I had learned about Jornadas, that if they didn't get something done while the plaster was wet, that delayed them too, because they had to let that plaster dry. Once it was dried, chip it all off, mix new plaster, apply the new plaster, and then start working. So, so work got carefully defined, but also you heard that Diego slept in the museum, slept in the theater. So.
Oh, that's brilliant to know, because they have to chip it off because it'll be at a different layer if they don't. If they just reapplied more plaster, it would be at a different level. That's very interesting.
Thank you.
That's it, Don. Once you continue.
Oh, okay. So they used radar to find out where those Nelson studs were located. Then started the drilling for easier access to cut them. Here's a removal on the left of a large panel from the concrete wall. And here's when the attachment of the panel to the gray steel structure for support. And then the yellow is the custom travel frame with wheels. So once they attached it to the travel frame, they could roll it out to be put on the truck. Let's see. So each panel was lifted by a large crane outside the building, huge crane, huge construction crane. It was lifted and held together by two strong wires. There's a better picture in there somewhere, to be put on a temporary gantry to lift in place on the steel structures with wheels. So they moved onto a truck in a dedicated travel frame, like I just said. Here is a time lapse I did of one of the deinstalls, the last panel on the left. So that's the gantry that's going to support that panel. And if you look out to the left, you can see a red truck. The crane is craning over and has its two wires, steel cables coming down support, and it drops down, and you can see the Swiss cheese walls where they had to cut the studs. So you can imagine that those panels are apt to swing out. So it's a very slow and arduous process. Lots of waiting around, like I already mentioned, for the right moment to do the next careful thing. But the crews were incredible. These were incredible professional people who took their time, trained to take their time. I mean, you're moving a priceless mural. Everybody was, well, all eyes are watching too. So it's a little stressful, I can imagine, if you're on that crew and you're responsible for its condition, its well-being. So everybody just super slow. Finally, okay, so those wire rope isolators are the ones that were designed to, they're like gigantic shock absorbers. They were designed to take the vibration of the rolling down the road. So once the work was mounted to the suspended inner frame, it was mounted to the travel frame with those NASA-inspired wire rope isolators that act like giant shock absorbers for the trip through town at 4 in the morning on Sunday mornings when the roads are quiet and the trucks can go at 5 miles an hour. So this was an 8,000-pound road test with those sensors, and it was successful. So that's what they did. Okay, so that's all the work at CCSF. And here is finally, getting to SFMOMA, you know, at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday mornings, when it's sleepy and no one's around. And they also wanted to keep it kind of quiet. They didn't want a lot of hoopla around the move. So they chose Sunday mornings when no one is awake to roll that truck at 5 miles an hour, from City College to SFMOMA. So here's the display structure that the scientists and engineers also designed to hold each of the 10 panels in place, hanging, then welded. And I did a time lapse of the install of that structure. So there's protective material on the floor. So when we roll the individual panels in, the floor doesn't get scuffed up. That's what those are. And here's a time lapse of, so this took about 8 days to complete this superstructure. 8 days of construction, starting very early in the mornings, going to sun up into the afternoon each day. You can see the light shift as the day progresses. So they started really early, like 5 in the morning. But to me, this structure is like a work of art in itself. I liken it to a solid cubic sculpture on steroids. I think it's a beautiful support.
And who designed the support? Like who?
It was a collaboration between the engineers and the scientists. Yeah, I don't have like a single name. That's a good question. Maybe I can find that out if there is an author for that. Okay.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of authors of this incredible move.
Yeah.
You know, it is sort of a work of art.
It is. I think it's quite a beautiful structure. And what's neat about this is that those are the windows out on Howard Street. And so they took out one of those big windows to get the mural, each panel in. But you can see the back of it from the street. And on the far right, you can see where it gets kind of skinny. They've put a piece of plexiglass so that you can peek behind and see behind it. And what was kind of fun was at the end of the installation, everybody who was part of the crew signed one of the beams. It wouldn't be visible to the public, but if you crawled back behind there, people were elated to sign their name on the beam as sort of a document of that time.
So is that something that that's something you can actually see if you look through that window?
From the big windows, I think you can. I bet you could see it. Yeah. So if you're out on Howard Street, the windows at the back of the structure, look for lots of signatures. And the photographers and conservators all signed the beams.
Well, you know, I was saying this was a work of art. It's really a work of choreography. You know, it just to coordinate all this is really
amazing.
There's a couple questions that were asked, and I thought they'd been answered in chat, but I'm realizing now not everyone could see the answer. So one question was about the languages between the Mexican people involved and the Americans. And Will Minez tells us all the Mexicans involved in the project did speak English. So that kind of overcame that. And then someone asked, the The crane must have been outside of City College. How did the wires get into the building to lift the mural? And Will said through holes cored into the roof.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. And we'll see an example of the size of crane in just a second here. So this was the plan, to put the bottom one first and then the top one, start from the right, moving to the left, et cetera, et cetera.
It's very nice. Very nice use of PowerPoint to show.
Clicking each slide.
Yeah, I like that. I like how that kind of fills in like that.
Little animation. So outside SFMOMA, with an example of a panel, crane large panel, they had to lift it over the muni lines. So a big enough crane to take it high up in the air, to lift it over the lines and then place it carefully down
Oh my.
back on the ground. And you'll see that it's in a yellow travel frame. Once it got on, they would put wheels on each side of the travel frame to roll it into the gallery. So they're right there. They've got the gantry on the top. On the right slide, you can see those steel beams are called the gantry, and they're put in place to support the weight of each panel, which is very heavy. I don't have an exact poundage on it. Maybe Will knows the exact poundage on the upper panels, but they're pretty heavy and pretty and fragile, and they sway in the wind if you're not careful. So there's a lot of rigging, keeping each there's a lot of rigging to each of the four corners to keep it stable so it doesn't sway. So that's where a couple trucks would park and the crane, and you can see that's Howard Street. The JR mural graphic was installed at that time of this picture, but the windows are now clear, so you can peek in into the gallery there.
Can't help mentioning it's also a bike lane now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The bike nut in me just had to point that out.
Good for you. And then you can see on the right slide, the entryway for panels was just a piece of glass. Whoops, but they took out the glass to move the panels through that area. And here's a time lapse of one of the cranings, what it took to lift it over the muni lines. Boop, it just goes right there and
Wow.
into the gallery.
And all this done so people can see the mural for free.
That's right.
Like, I'd definitely be willing to pay $25.
I know, me
Just
too.
After seeing all that went into this.
Yeah, I don't know what the number of what the vast number is, but I imagine it's up there. And then finally, this is so there's the gantry, the red vibrant 7 and 8 gantry. Those are hydraulic gantries that hold up the steel girders to hold the weight of each panel. And you can see they're hand cranking those chains by hand, inch by inch, to get it in place. And this is a time lapse I did. It was over several months because it took, we're talking about every Sunday or every other Sunday moving a panel or two. And my camera was stationary for that length of time. So this is actually like a month and a half or 2 months of bringing in each panel one by one. See, you can see them hand cranking the chains, and it settles in. And then the top row comes in. more skilled as they went along. Like the first two were, they're still trying to figure it out as they're going along in a way, you know. But then those lights are conservators, removing some of that cyclododecane from the surface, looking at the surface, seeing how well it traveled, etc.
Hey, Don, good question in chat. What was the total cost of moving the mural? Do we have
I
any
don't
idea?
have that figure.
I think I know the answer. The answer is a lot.
A lot, millions
Yeah.
probably. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. I don't know if that figure is really out in the public eye. I don't know if they want to really advertise that number, but it was a lot. I mean, if you consider all the experts from Mexico and from the US and the engineers and the scientists and the conservators, you know.
But the value of the mural being available in this way is truly priceless.
Yeah, yeah. So back to the collage. That's all I have.
Well, Don, this is really great information, and hopefully anyone who wasn't sure if they were going to go see the mural has been inspired to. I imagine many of you have gotten a chance to see the mural, and I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on it. So you'll be welcome to raise your hand and get called on and just give us your thought, like what about the mural really struck you? I'd love to hear that. I just want to ask you, Don, so were you actually there on Sunday at 4:00 in the morning while all this was going on?
Several
And-
times.
and,
Yeah.
Like, what was the feeling you had as this was all going on? Was it like, was there goosebumps? You know,
Oh yeah, no, it was really exciting. And I'm not a morning person, but I was definitely very excited. And I was always checking my camera to make sure that I'm getting the image, that like the time lapse is working, and process shots, and everybody working. It was quite thrilling to see it all come together. Yeah. And that
And what-
last day, like I said, you could see people hugging. It was like major friendships were formed. Collaborations were strengthened. It was just there wasn't like a bad day on the job. I don't think. It was just everybody was great to each other, in good moods, and it was just a real celebratory event.
The thought occurred to me hearing you describe this, that Diego Rivera has dedicated this mural to the marriage between the United States and the rest of the Americas, and that this project was the perfect example of that, of Mexico and the United States working together to preserve this cultural masterpiece for all of us.
Yeah, that analogy really stuck with a lot of people. People were making that exact connection, that it was really a coming together of the different continents, together, working together.
And it's a repudiation of those who would separate us, who say we are not connected.
Exactly.
Paco has his hand raised. Paco, go ahead and unmute and share your thoughts.
I'm so fascinating with all of the paintings in a MoMA. Like, they are actually installing those paintings like in a crane. And I've seen that before at City College.
So Paco, you got to see it at City College. Have you gotten a chance to see it now at SFMOMA?
Oh, I haven't, because not during this pandemic, but after the pandemic, I will try to visit.
Well, maybe you and I together can go and look at it. I would really enjoy that, Paco. There was a question from Marcia. She says, "Can you say again why the Mexican contingent was involved?" Don, do you want to? I think Don or Will or anyone you can address.
Sure. I mean, Diego was from Mexico. He has a lot of murals in Mexico. It's just the patrimony, of that artistic expression really strong in Mexico. And so those are the experts, maybe Will can speak a little bit more. What do you think, Will? Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I've got a
Or
couple
Nikki?
of comments.
Yeah.
We started working on this in 2011. At that time, City College and the Mexican consulate signed a memorandum of understanding saying that this mural was a treasure of two countries. And at that time, I hired Scott Athow, the art mover, and Rosenthal, the art conservator, and a structural engineer, Jim Guthrie, to start doing an exploratory assessment of what a move would entail. And the head of conservation in Mexico came to San Francisco to confer. So it's been between Mexico and the United States for a whole decade. And what Rivera would really love is all the technical analysis, all the number crunching, for the most part, got done by the graduate mechanical engineering department at UNAM. And so it was a great collaboration. UNAM's Gazette did a lovely article about the whole project just 2 weeks ago. So it was just, Diego would have loved this. So as Rodney says, it's kind of a repudiation of people would keep us apart. Here's a much better way for Mexico and the United States to get along.
Will, can you speak a little bit to the content of the mural, as far as there's the indigenous piece, and then there's the industrial revolution type piece, there's the gold rush, there's this idea of things merging, like technology and the natural world. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did a whole talk on it 2 weeks ago. Yeah, no, it's again, at the time, there was nothing slowing down the Nazis. And it was a foregone conclusion the Nazis were going to win in Europe. And Diego thought that they would then turn their malignant eyes to the Americas. And it was imperative that all the countries of the Americas be on the same side, hence Pan-American unity. And so Rivera finds himself in the ironic position, both as a communist and as a Mexican, to find that his natural ally is the United States. So he's coming up with a paradigm for us to get along, and symbolized by that center icon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned the part one discussion, Will, and I just posted in chat the link to that for people who want to see it. We are also recording today's program, and I'll be posting that on YouTube. If you want to get a heads up on that, you can give me your email, and I'll go ahead and tell you. I also send out an email to my subscriber list every Friday, and I'll have a link to that there.
Great.
There was a question in chat from someone asked, will SFMOMA be the permanent home of the mural? I believe
No,
it not.
no.
Can you speak a little bit about what the long-term plan is for it?
Yeah, well, what happened is it's 4.5 years ago. I have a blog, and it was common knowledge that the mural was going to move. And 4.5 years ago, MoMA approached us about borrowing the mural, and I went out to MoMA, and they pitched me a deal, and such a deal. They would move it, conserve it, find a better way of mounting it, and then return it to City College in the fall of 2023, where then it should go up in a new venue at City College that would be something akin to what MoMA's done, because the situation at MoMA is the benchmark. You couldn't have a better presentation than what MoMA's done.
That's great to hear you say that, Will, because I know you've kind of dedicated yourself to the preservation of this mural, and I just feel like we're just so fortunate to have it available to us for now at SFMOMA, and then when it's back at City College, I'll certainly want to go there and see it in its new home.
Yeah.
There's a question.
Go ahead.
Will.
Go ahead, Don.
No, somebody asked me who painted the watercolor behind me, and it's actually a Frankenthaler painting. I should have loaded a Rivera image. What was it today? I don't know.
Yeah, I love having Thomas Edison looking over my shoulder here.
There you go. You got it going on.
Other thoughts? We only have a couple more minutes because we got another program coming up after this. Chef Lorraine will be doing her Zoom programs, and she was gracious enough to let us take over her time slot last 2 weeks ago. So
Rodney, I'm gonna be with Richie tonight.
we
I
do
can't
have
wait.
a really good program tonight on rock history. It's going to be George Harrison Part 2. This was Diego Rivera Part 2, and we're going to be talking about George Harrison tonight, and that's going to be wonderful. That's at 6 o'clock. Let's see.
Richie is so famous too.
Yeah, Richie, a totally different subject, but it's such great stuff that we have with Community Living Campaign. Any last thoughts on? Oh yeah, someone posted to me that they saw an estimated cost of $154 million for the move. That
Ooh.
sounds a little extreme. I don't know where that kind of money would come from.
150, yeah, that's kind of,
Wow.
I think, out of the realm of reality.
It's yeah, I'm sorry, that's unsubstantiated. I'll tell you what, though, we'll look into it and see if there is some publicly available number on that, and share that on a future show if there is. Marcia has her hand raised, unless that was from earlier. Marcia, do you, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask a future question, I guess, to Mr. Minez. Will that Howard Street lobby continue to be used for free art? Is that something the museum's going to continue to do?
I think I know the answer to that. I believe
okay.
that has always been the museum's purpose. It's always been free. So the the JR piece that was there was free, and it is like the museum had the sense that yeah, they charge a pretty high admission price, but they want to have a way of engaging the community that doesn't require people to clear that hurdle. There's also, people can get, I think through the libraries, you're able to get, once a year, you're able to get free tickets to the museum, and there are free days for the museum too.
Mhm.
Wow, thank you.
Don, do you have anything you want to add to that since you work for SFMOMA?
Yeah, just that we, I like to stress that this Roberts Family Gallery is free to enter from Howard Street. And it's worth seeing. There are a couple, like the atrium in the beginning off of 151 3rd Street is a free area. So anywhere you come in, the idea is that it's community space before you get to the ticketing. So if you you don't happen to have the time or the inclination to buy a ticket that day, you can still see a lot of free art. And then we're also reinstituting free days, Real Drive to have free days. And so I forget the schedule, but I think it's
like once a month, right?
Once a month. It's monthly. And also we're open late on Thursday nights till about 8 or so. So if you're more of the evening kind of crowd, come Thursday nights. That's when we're open late. And we're closed Tuesdays and Wednesdays right now. We used to just be closed on Wednesdays, but with everything going on, we're closed Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but every other day we're open at some capacity. So we would love to come in.
So Don, I'm going to thank you for being a guest, and it was a great presentation, and great job documenting. I should mention, by the way, that Don's photographs in the video got used by the New York Times, and he got a New York Times byline. So congratulations on that, Don. To me, that's a real honor.
That was a milestone. Thank you, Rodney. Yeah, it was cool to see my name in the New York Times.
For good reasons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it might have to be my pyramid scheme or something. So stay tuned for that. So I want to thank the Community Living Campaign for hosting us, and all of you for joining. It's been a great program. I'll turn it back to Nikki.
It's for tonight.
Not sure what that was, but Nikki, why don't you go ahead and close us out? Oh, you're muted, Nikki.
Great program, Rodney and Don.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rocco. Thank you, Rodney. Don, it was a wonderful program. We had a huge audience again, and really appreciate you coordinating all the aspects of this, Rodney. It was really terrific. Don, I hope we can get you back again, and Will Minez, of course, as well. So we continue to have programming like this for seniors and people with disabilities. Please visit our website. It's sfcommunityliving.org/events. And if you want to get a calendar every month, or we can send you one by email, we would be glad to do that. Just contact our organization. I'll put my email in the chat. And tonight we have another program, the Boomer Music. Later in the week, we have something that's very important for people who have some hearing problems and their phones, or trying to connect seniors to and people with disabilities to good phone service so they have the right phone for themselves. We have another great program next week. It's senior self-defense. So that's very popular. We're just really happy that you're all here. This has been a terrific program, especially since we're in the heart of Latino Heritage Month right now. And just happy to see so many faces interested and learning more about this amazing, amazing treasure of San Francisco, done by, probably the most famous Mexican artist. So thank you so much for being here. We'll see you again. Lorraine is coming up with her cooking program, so join us for that. And
I'm gonna be there, Nikki.
okay.
Lorraine.
Oh.
She's back.
And happy heavenly birthday to my mother. Thank you, Mom.
Yes, happy birthday.
Happy
Happy
birthday to
birthday.
your mom, Nikki, once
Thank
again.
you. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye,
Thank you so
Nikki.
much.
Bye.
Thank you, Rodney, Don, and Will.
Bye, Will.
Bye, Rodney.
Great having everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
Bye,
Roger.
Rodney. See you
Thank
tonight.
you.
at the
See you tonight.
preview.
Bye.